Okay, so it is now 11:05 and the Board of County Commissioners is coming out of executive session. There was no decisions to be made as a result of the executive session. So we'll continue on with the other matters coming before the board. Mr. Hanson, Mr. Withrow, you don't have anything else for us? Mr. Hanson is gone. Mr. Withrow, I'm assuming you're done?
Yes, sir, we are. Thank you. Thank you all for your time.
All right. Then that gets us down to miscellaneous matters again. Is there any other miscellaneous matters for either my fellow commissioners or Mr. Gimmel? So I will move into one that we've talked about twice before, but I think now we're down to the point to where we need to take some action. And this is on the call for election of freeholders for a charter amendment. I brought this forward twice before, once in the spring and then after the courts ruled on the constitutionality of the 5-commissioner bill and stuff. And so the comments at that time was, let's deal with it after the election. We certified the election last Tuesday, and so there's a timing issue to be able to bring it forward to the public. I've asked Mr. Amacio to create a resolution, which he has done. Have you shared it with the other two commissioners yet?
I have not.
Okay, so if we could share that with the other two commissioners, and then he's done a very nice spreadsheet of questions that have to be answered by us to be able to finalize the resolution and put it on the ballot. At this point, if we put it on the February ballot, it will, the preliminary estimate is probably about $200,000. If we put it on a later ballot, it's probably closer to $400,000 in terms of the cost for doing this and stuff. So there are a number of questions that need to be asked and answered. And Mr. Amacio, do you want to take us through this? And you know, if we don't have the answers, Jim and I and Vicki Dalton are meeting this afternoon at 1 o'clock to finalize a couple of the items in here, particularly population allocation. If we were to go by legislative district, the other opportunity is to go by county commissioner district. The difference is the number of freeholders that are eligible to participate in the process. You can, if we go by commissioner district, you can have up to 25 freeholders. You divide that between 3 and that becomes 24. Or you can go by legislative district by population. And so we have population numbers for legislative districts 3, 4, and 6. And Ms. Dalton is getting us a population for legislative districts 7 and 9. So we should have hopefully that information this afternoon. So Mr. Amacio, do you want to kind of take us through your little list there?
Let me say a couple of things, if I could, Chairman French. Chief Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Jack Driscoll and I, in February of 2020, met with the board in open session, and we discussed whether or not we wanted to place before the electorate the election of freeholders to frame a home rule charter for Spokane County. And as the board knows, the framing of a home rule charter can take place in either one of 2 areas. Number 1, a petition can be submitted by the electors of Spokane County to trigger placing before the electorate whether or not they want to frame a home rule charter, and if so, the election of a certain number of freeholders. In order for the petition to be effective, it must be signed by 10% of those individuals voting in the last general election. I don't have that number, board members, but I'm sure I can get that from Ms. Dahl. The other way to initiate a home rule charter is for the Board of County Commissioners to pass a resolution. And the resolution basically calls for an election at a date set by the board, wherein the electors of Spokane County will elect between 15 and 25 freeholders from Spokane County, who will then meet and propose a home rule charter. And once they have prepared the charter, it will go to the citizens of Spokane County and they will vote on it. And if a majority of the people voting on that particular item vote to support it, then the charter will become the effective form of county government, and it will supersede any other form of government that is presently in place. That is to say, a 3-member Board of County Commissioners or a 5-member Board of County Commissioners. It will automatically supersede that. As the board is aware, in the home rule charter, the freeholders can eliminate all elected officials except the county prosecutor, the district court judges, the superior court judges, and the superintendent of public instruction. So that's basically the general parameters of the home rule process. If the Board of County Commissioners triggers the home rule process by resolution, there are many decisions that you have to make in conjunction with that particular resolution. And I have a matrix which identifies those decisions. And I apologize, I can't get it to you right now. It's the same matrix that I made available to you in February of last year. And I'd have to excuse myself very briefly to email it to you. And if Chairman French, if you'd like me to, it'll just take me a moment to do that, because they almost have to see that so they can better identify the issues.
Yeah, so why don't you go ahead and do that, and then what we can do is review the matrix that Jim has put together, and then as part of the miscellaneous for tomorrow, after we do our consent agenda, we can come back and revisit this, and then that way you'll have a chance to take a look at it, think about how you want to treat several of the questions that are raised by Jim, but we can go through it very quickly now. So Jim, if you want to go ahead and email that to them so that they've got it in front of them.
I'll do it right now, Commissioner French.
Okay.
Excuse me.
I can just stand that.
So he's on his way. He's on a mission
Okay.
and stuff. So so in case you didn't see the newspaper on Wednesday, when we were certifying the election, we had about probably 10 to 12 people in the elections office that were there to register their concerns, complaints about fraud in the election, and presented petitions and a variety of other things to try and get Ms. Dalton, Mr. Haskell, and I to not certify the election. And so we instructed the crowd that even if we wanted to do that, we don't have the legal authority to do that. And the only ones that can stop the certification of an election are the judges, and that they would have to take their issues to a superior court judge and get the judge to rule on it. And clearly there wasn't time to be able to do that and stuff. So after we went through the process of certifying the election, we did spend probably another 30 to 45 minutes engaged with the folks, the citizens that were there, talking about the process. talking about the Department of Licensing and how they do not certify citizenship. And that created a lot of angst with the folks in the room because an immigrant can go in and get a license, and with the license, get voter registration and not be a citizen of the United States and still vote. But that's the laws on the books. So we encourage them to go to their state legislators and try and fix whatever inconsistencies they had with the election process. But since all three of us are out in the community, I wanted to at least share with you kind of some of the dialogue that went on between Mr. Haskell, Ms. Dalton, and myself, and the people there about concerns they had about the election process. If you haven't seen the petition and some of the issues raised, I think Ms. Dalton can provide that for you. She took all of those petitions from those participating, and it might be informative for you about some of the concerns they raised. So that's kind of a summary of what happened on Tuesday.
Did any of the people have any specific instances they could point to in Spokane County that they thought were instances of fraud?
And
the only reason I asked that is because I think the bulk of the emails I got last week were not pointing to anything specific to Spokane County. It was other places in Washington where they were talking about population differences based on registered voters, but none of them were actually specific to Spokane in the emails.
So the two issues that they raised that could or could not be an issue for Spokane County was, somebody that was not a legal U.S. citizen being able to vote, and that goes back to the driver's license. The other is how frequently the election list of registered voters is updated to account for people that have passed away. And then the third issue was, how do we track folks that have moved away from Spokane but still get a ballot forwarded to them in another state where they are now a registered voter in. So those were the three primary issues. Nothing specific to a name, just what they viewed as a flaw in the process. Now, I thought Vicki did a great job of talking about the efforts that the elections office does to keep track of folks that have passed away, and how they follow the obituaries and other records to try and make sure that that side of it is taken care of. Then they're part of a national database, and Mary, you probably know more about this than I do, but 30 states are part of this national database that tries to track registered voters from one state to another. And then they compare the databases to make sure that the same person with the same birthday is not appearing on multiple registrants. And if there is, then what do they do to track it down to make sure that they eliminate those from the registry for the state that they left? And then the other issue is the driver's license, and that's clearly an issue to be dealt with at state level. It's out of our purview. But those are the three main issues that were raised about Spokane County. Nothing more specific than that.
Yeah, and as you know, I try to tell people, and Vicki does a good job. I mean, it's like our elections office is pretty tight. I mean, we do everything we can to make sure someone's not counted elsewhere. It's called the ERIC system, is the state system that that, several of the states are all part of, to find out if duplicate voters, are registered in different states. And yeah, I mean, they go through the obituaries and do all that, to try to, make sure, because we've seen where, if someone votes, with mail-in voting, they can vote and then pass away a week later. Their vote still counts because they were alive at the time that their vote was entered into the system. So, yeah, I just, our office does a great job. So there's, it's anytime anyone says that there's voter fraud, I'm like, go down and talk to Mike and see what they really do. So.
And I thought Vicky did a really good job of, the crowd was very well, I don't want to say mannered, but they, a great decorum, and it just an exchange, conversation. I think Vicky Dalton did a great job of answering each one of their questions with a great deal of specificity, and I thought it was a fairly good session. I read the newspaper article when I got back last night, and I thought that it covered the event fairly well. But yeah, I just wanted to give you more information than what was included in the newspaper. So if anybody hits you on the street and says, well, I read whatever they read, so you had more detail about what actually transpired. So have you received the email from Jim yet?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's got to be on his way back here to go through this. The package he's put together is pretty darn thorough, and there aren't really many decisions for us to make to be able to complete the resolution. But I'll let him walk you through it.
Commissioner, he'll be here in just a minute.
Okay. You've
Sent that.
received it, so you're on.
Oh, yeah.
So all about you.
Board members, I sent you and staff, I sent you 2 items. Number 1, issues to be addressed in the resolution calling for the election of freeholders by the board. And number 2, a copy of a working draft resolution if you want to move forward. And the second document has answered some questions as we go through this. And of course, it needs the input from the auditor's office as to various items that we'll go through. So if I could look at your decision matrix at the present time. Item number 1, the election date. Under the Constitution, a resolution initiated by the Board of County Commissioners can take place either at a general or special election. So it can occur in November, it can occur in the August, it can occur in the April and the February. Any of those dates can be the basis for the election of freeholders by a resolution method. In the document that I have prepared for you, the election date is left empty. I think Commissioner French was suggesting that he wanted it in February because it would be less costly to the county, or the next date would be April, Commissioner French, which I think you alluded to would cost more money.
Right.
The second item is the number of freeholders. The number of freeholders is determined by the Board of County Commissioners in the resolution. You'll see you can have between 15 and 25. The resolution that I prepared suggests 25, and that they be allocated based upon the legislative districts, not the commissioner districts. Does the board, I guess for purposes of discussion only, and for me preparing a draft, I have proposed 25 and by legislative districts. Does the board have any sense, well, this is a working meeting now, have any sense of whether you want 25, between 15 and 25, you want them in legislative or commissioner districts? That's a decision for the board.
So to start the conversation, and my suggestion to Jim was that it'd be 25 by legislative district because we have 3 legislative districts that are all inside the county, but we also have 2 legislative districts that are partially inside the county. And so with the population numbers since you have 5, you allocate the freeholders by district or by population. So you could theoretically, and I'm not suggesting we do, but theoretically, based upon what I suspect we're going to see in the population numbers, and Vicki will have this for us at 1 o'clock. But if you were to say 25 and you had 6 from the 3rd, 6 from the 4th, 6 from the 6th, and 4 from the 7th and 3 from the 9th, that would get you to 25, and it would get you a distribution that pretty much follows the population. I think the 7th has more population in it than the 9th, but I'll know more about that when we see the numbers from Vicki. But I'm just going on past elections and quite frankly mail pieces and stuff, and for some reason it seems to me that the 7th has a bigger population base than the 9th does, but I could be wrong. But
No, it's substantially more.
is it? So maybe the 4-3 split is not the right split. Maybe it's a 5-2. I don't know. We'll know more about that when we see the numbers from Vicki.
So board members and staff, for purposes of item number 2, the draft that I have given you has 25 freeholders to be elected. And for item number 3, the draft that I've given you is by legislative districts. And you'll see, board members, I went through San Juan's and Clark County's resolutions, which they placed before their electorate. I wanted to be sure you saw what they had done. Not that that controls what we do here, but just so you have an idea. So as a placeholder, I've got 25. I've got it by legislative districts under item number 3.
That obviously can change tomorrow when we come back and revisit this. I'm not looking for anybody to make a decision today, but tomorrow Jim needs some feedback so we know what to move forward with.
Thank you. Item number 4, the freeholders can be partisan or nonpartisan. As you'll see, most counties provide their nonpartisan. Number 5, the terms of the freeholders. The freeholders' terms start when the election results are certified by the auditor, and also they run until the charter is completed and submitted to the Board of County Commissioners to submit to the electors for action. Item number 6.
So before we jump away from that, on 5, some of my initial thinking was, there's some question as to whether you can put a delivery date in there. Both the other counties did that. And so if we had by August 1 as the delivery date, then it could be put on the ballot for November for a general election in November. And that would give them basically the time period from the primary until the general to educate the public about whatever it is they're bringing forward. So, but that date can change to whatever else you think is a better date, but that was just some initial thinking about it.
I think Chairman French, board members are looking at item number 6, and you'll see that both San Juan and Clark counties put a date in their resolution upon which they wanted the freeholders to submit their charter back to the board. And so that is pretty common practice, at least in the 2 resolutions I looked at. Number 7 is an issue for Vicki Dalton, as is 8 and 9. Number 7, board members, as you're aware, we have to have a time frame for candidates to submit their declarations of candidacy to be considered for the number of freehold positions we want. We need a time frame within which they can withdraw their declarations of candidacy. And we need a time frame in which, if no one files for the total number of positions in a legislative or a commissioner district, which we can fill those vacancies. And again, 6, 7, and 8 are issues which we need the input from Vicki Dalton on. Number 9, board members, is filing fee. And of course, since the freeholders don't get paid, everyone is provided that there's no filing fee. Number 10, is just a standard language within Article 11, Section 4 of the Constitution, which allows a home rule charter. And it indicates that in order to be a freeholder, you must be an electorate within the commissioner or legislative districts, and you must have been a resident for the county for 5 years from the date of certification of the election of the freeholders by the auditor's office. And again, Section 10 is in the resolution. It's also in the constitutional provision. And the reason why a lot of this stuff is repeated in the resolution is because the resolution is what the candidates and the public are going to look at. And so, as you'll see, many of these things that are in the Constitution are also in the resolution. So that's item number 10. Number 11 has to do with how the electorate get to vote for the freeholders. There are 2 options. Option number 1, let's use Commissioner French's approach of the legislative districts. let's say that there were 5 positions in the 6th legislative district. Are you going to file for each position separately, i.e. position 1, 2, 3, and 4? Or are people just going to file for the maximum number of people in that particular legislative district? For instance, if there's 5. So under option number 1, I want to file for position number 1. Commissioner French wants to file for position number 2. And then under that option, the person receiving the most votes for that position would be elected. Under option number 2, there would simply be 5 positions in legislative district 6, and as many people would file for those 5 positions as wanted, but the top 5 vote getters would be the ones who were certified as elected. So that's item number 11. And what I've provided for tentatively in the draft document that I prepared is, based upon legislative districts, people would simply file within that legislative district to be a freeholder, and the top number of freeholders in that particular legislative district would be the ones that would be elected. Number 12, how the candidates' names appear on the ballot. Again, you'll see that both San Juan County and Clark County did it by lottery or by lot or by drawing. And I'll want Vicki Dalton's input on that. Item number 13 is again similar to how do we determine who's elected, and that depends upon whether or not you file for a position or for one of the positions within the legislative district. 14 is simply, generally speaking, once the election results are certified, the board designates in the resolution who's the interim chair of the freeholders for the purpose of initiating the first meeting. And both San Juan and Clark County identified that the individual receiving the greatest number of votes would be the interim chair. And that just facilitates calling the first meeting. Number 15, freeholders don't receive any compensation, except they can submit to the Board of County Commissioners a request that they be reimbursed for travel expenses and things of that nature. And it's up to the board as to whether or not you want to approve that. Number 16 is a restatement of the constitutional provisions. Once the election results are certified, the freeholders must meet within 30 days and start the process of preparing the home rule charter. And at that initial meeting, both resolutions prepared by Clark and San Juan counties provide that the prosecuting attorney will advise the freeholders on various provisions of state law which are relevant to their moving forward. Number 17 is again something that has appeared in most freeholder resolutions, and it charges the freeholders with coming up, if you will, with a calendar of what they intend to accomplish in the first 30 or 60 days. And this ensures that they move forward in a timely fashion. And the reason why the county commissioners put this in their resolution is if they don't put these timeframes in there, requiring the freeholders to do stuff, in some instances, the freeholders don't timely move forward, so they get a charter prepared in a timely fashion. Number 18 is a unique one, and that basically provides that no county employee shall take any activity while on public time in a promotion or opposition to a home rule charter. And the reason why this was done is there was an Attorney General's opinion that came out some years ago where a question arose as to whether a county employee could take a position in support of a charter provision. And of course, as we all know, that can't occur because it's a ballot proposition. So in any event, under item 18, both the charter of Clark County and San Juan counties included language prohibiting that. And then number 19 is the one which Commissioner French alluded to. The constitutional provision authorizing the Board of County Commissioners to submit a ballot proposition for the electors of freeholders to frame a home rule charter does not include the time frame within which the freeholders have to prepare the home rule charter and submit it to the Board of County Commissioners for placement before the electors. But you'll see that both in Clark County and San Juan counties, the Board of County Commissioners in their resolution submitting the election of freeholders did put in a time frame within which to complete the freeholders process and submit a charter to the Board of County Commissioners. And I think if the Board of County Commissioners has gone online and it's looked at the provisions that Clark County used to frame their home rule charter, they found that they did have sufficient time within the time frame alluded to in their resolution. So this working sheet identifies out of the 19 things. All of these 19 things, board members, I've addressed in the working draft resolution, which I sent to you this morning, along with this list of questions.
Any questions for Jim? Okay. So we can continue this to tomorrow afternoon and hopefully fill in the blanks and get this before folks. I know that there's a lot of energy out there. I've been talking to a lot of folks that have said, we want to be freeholders. We want to be part of the process. And so I think we're going to not have any trouble in terms of getting freeholders. It should be a pretty packed group of folks that are looking to participate. The idea of putting it on the February ballot measure is the schools are going to be doing their bond measures, their levy issues. And so sharing the cost with them will be a lot easier. And quite frankly, this might end up attracting more interest to the election than they might otherwise have been experiencing and stuff. So that's the thoughts. So we can have more conversation about it tomorrow afternoon.
As the board is aware, and I think Commissioner Kearns, or maybe it's Commissioner Cooney, alluded to last February when we also brought this issue up, there are several home rule charters, home rule counties in the state of Washington, as the board already knows. And there were 12 failed attempts, Commissioner French, where counties proposed a home rule charter process and it went to the vote of their constituents. And in those particular 12 counties, they determined they did not want to move forward at that point in time with the home rule process.
The only thing that has changed is the Supreme Court now has ruled that the legislature can change the composition of your Board of County Commissioners at their whim. So as Eric Johnson said after the Supreme Court made its ruling, that he wouldn't be surprised more counties went to a charter structure just so they could protect themselves from the legislature and the whims of the legislature. So this is as much about charting our own future as it is about protecting ourselves from any other gymnastics that the legislature might want to impose on us.
As the board also knows, Chairman French, even if, assuming arguendo, that a majority of the board wanted to place the election of freeholders before the voters of Spokane County, the freeholder process would not prohibit the 5-commissioner bill moving forward. Let me state that again. As the board knows, the 5-commissioner bill was held to be constitutional. As of January 1st, the legislative caucuses can start appointing the composition of the 5-member redistricting commission. The redistricting commission will move forward with the process of dividing Spokane County into 5 commissioner districts by population and determining the term of the 5 commissioners in those respective counties, regardless of whether or not the freeholder process moves forward. If the freeholder process moves forward, if the voters approve the formation of a home rule charter, the home rule charter will supersede the 5 commissioners once they are elected, and or whether or not they are elected upon the effective date in the charter itself. And generally speaking, the effective date is 6 months after the voters approve a charter. So you could have 2 things, Chairman French and board members, going on at the same time. You could have the 5-commissioner bill, and you could have the home rule charter process.
With regard to timing, this could be completed by November, and assuming that the 6-month timetable that Maceo articulated would be ending in April, that then gets us to where there's clarity as to what can happen in May with regard to filing for a county commissioner and what are the parameters associated with that filing in 2022. So this is the last effort to deliver to the citizens of Spokane County what they said they wanted in 2015, which is 3 commissioners, not 5. Now, as I've said before, if the voters of Spokane County say they want 3, 5, 25, I don't care, but it should be the voters of Spokane County making that determination, not a bunch of legislators in Olympia. And this will give that authority back to our citizens and give them the right to do what every other citizen in the county and in the state has, is the right to choose whether you want to be a code county or a charter county. So that's what this will do, and it'll bring closure to this chapter.
One further comment for the board. I think during the levy hearing, Commissioner French alluded to the fact that the Board of County Commissioners is responsible for providing resources and funding for the 5-commissioner bill, which is true. With regard to the home rule process, like the 5-commissioner bill, the county commissioners are responsible for providing funding for that particular process too. However, under the home rule process, it's very clear that the prosecuting attorney's office is the legal advisor of the freeholders. And whereas if you look closely at the 5-commissioner bill, although arguably the board provides resources and funding, and so there's some uncertainty as to whether or not the prosecutor's office provides them legal advice and counsel. I believe they do, but I think that's an issue which would have to be addressed with the redistricting committee members. But in any event, the cost of the freeholder process, board members, is one which will be borne by the Board of County Commissioners. And again, I think it's interesting to know what occurred, Chairman French, in Clark County. Clark County, they actually, the freeholders hired someone to assist them through this process because it can be complex unless you have someone that is good in organizing stuff and getting through the process.
Okay. Anything else, Mary?
So, I mean, I'm just going to say I'm not sure that I'm just sold that we're going to. I mean, I don't know where I'm at on this, and I kind of, just springing it on us without having, it's been nice to have some discussions on this, just in general. But so when does when do we have to submit for, what's the deadline for the filing for the elections office for the February ballot?
I will know more after 1 o'clock meeting with Vicky. The last date that I was told, but I don't know that it's accurate, is December 11th.
Okay. Because I think part of what I'm just going to, say, part of my feeling is yes, I didn't like how Olympia dictated to us what to do, and I feel like this should be a community-led process. And so I think the petition process is the way to do it versus us just, forcing it on the ballot. So that's kind of where I've been on this. So, and I've been on this same thought for a long time, and it hasn't really changed.
So the legislature didn't use a petition process when they imposed it on us. And based upon the last general election, which certified last week, that means that you've got to find 29,000 signatures in a COVID environment. That puts your citizens at a disadvantage to try and respond to something that was imposed on them, not something that they asked for. So, in effect, what you're saying is, citizens, doesn't matter. You're out. You're done. Because there's no way we're going to get 29,000 signatures in a COVID environment, not without violating all the protocols established by the governor. Okay. With that then, that completes all the items coming before the board. So it is now 11:52 and we are adjourned until tomorrow's consent agenda. Thanks.
It is December 11th, Al,
Yeah.
for